It's Middleton, fellas, and not because he is the best player, but because he's the most inconsistent player. And because he is the most inconsistent player, then they need his dominance, that is the Bucks, in order to make sure they win. Let's put this in perspective for y'all. Khris Middleton has 4 35-point games in 21 playoff games thus far. Over the course of his entire career, he has 10 35-point games over 629 games. So Khris Middleton scores 35 points once out of every 5 games in the playoffs. He does it once out of every 62 games in the regular season. So he's shown us incredible highs this season. But again, I got to put it in perspective. Remember, round 2 against the Brooklyn Nets, Khris Middleton had a 13-point game. They lost. He had a 38-point game. They won. Against the Hawks, Khris Middleton, he had a 15-point game. They lost. He had a 38-point game. They won. Against the Suns, he had an 11-point game. They lost. He had a 40-point game. They won. Unlike Giannis, who is just consistent, Khris Middleton is feast or famine. When he is famine, the team is famished. When he feasts, everybody eats. The most important player, Khris Middleton.
I am not mad at that take at
My
all.
dog's lit.
See, you guys don't get a chance to see me prep. We don't prep in the same place, so you don't know how close I was to taking the same tack. But I have to go with Chris Paul because Chris Paul, to this point, he is the most important player going forward in this series because he has been the most important player in this series to this point. The difference between when Chris Paul plays well and when he doesn't play well is starker than the impact of anybody else. Can I get the full screen, please?
Full screen?
This is this series, the plus minus for each player. Now, Khris Middleton is a close second, but when it comes to the difference between wins and losses, no one has a greater disparity than Chris Paul. With Giannis, you're exactly right. The consistency is there, and if he's not there, then you can cobble together his replacement. And I would dare say, even with Khris Middleton, as long as Jrue Holiday isn't going 4 for 20 and Brook Lopez hits a couple threes, then they can replace what Middleton does. But what Chris Paul does for the Phoenix Suns, as I said earlier in the show, simply can't be replicated. The difference between him not only scoring but getting everybody else involved is it clearly affects the plus minus when it comes to wins and losses. So Khris Middleton is a close second. I'm not mad at that. And if you want to say he's the most important when it comes to the Bucks, I'm right there with you. But overall, deciding the series, I have to go with Chris Paul.
Oh, Slick Rick. Oh, on this show, I need to see all my brothers right here. On this show, Texas is a tremendous school. Actually, as a child, that was a school I wanted to go to, the Burnt Orange. I remember wearing my Texas hat all the time. And then my talents took me elsewhere because they weren't as great as Achos in high school. But on this screen right here, we see 2 Ivy Leaguers and the University of Texas. And God, you were so close, University of Texas, with that Khris Middleton take. But it's the Ivy Leaguers that are actually correct here. It's Chris Paul. Damn, we don't prep. None of us prep in the same space. Acho and I either. But damn, Slick. Our minds were thinking alike. You can't go with Khris Middleton because his inconsistency is interesting in terms of how he's inconsistent. He's great. You said the Brooklyn Nets. No, it was actually the Brooklyn Net. Remember? The injuries helped him become a little better. You talk about the Atlanta Hawks. It wasn't the Atlanta Hawks. It was the Atlanta Hawk. Remember when Trae Young got hurt? Then all of a sudden you see a little more out of Khris Middleton. So which one is greater? Which one is better? Inconsistence or decline? Oh, because you always, Acho, talk about the decline of Chris Paul. So let's talk about how we rise and we fall by Chris Paul. Look at this right here. The plus minus is what Slick Rick and I want to highlight. 12-0 when he has a positive plus minus. 0-6? Like, you can't get a cleaner disparity in numbers than this full screen right here. But let me also add to these numbers as well that the Suns are 6-1 this postseason when Chris Paul scores 20 or more points. 9-3 when he dishes out 8 or more assists. 7-1 when he shoots over 50%. Come on, man. Chris Paul is how this team goes. He is the little engine that could. So if Chris Paul is balling, we saw game 1. We saw game 2. We know what happens with the Phoenix Suns. They win those games. They're going back to Phoenix now. Hopefully Chris Paul is going to go back to his comfort zone and do what Chris Paul does, which is be great.
Yeah, that is the big question. And look, Khris Middleton is important to the equation.
Yeah.
Jrue Holiday is important to the equation. Giannis certainly is important to the equation. But I also have to take a look at what matchup I'm looking at with Khris Middleton and him going off, particularly when it comes to winning Game 3. First of all, it's Giannis and it's Khris Middleton versus DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges. If Khris Middleton can't get the job done being defended by Mikal Bridges, who I like, but let's face it, he's not Jrue Holiday, who's first-team all-defense. He's not Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's first-team all-defense. What Chris Paul is facing is a far tougher test than what Khris Middleton is doing. He's doing what he should be doing. Chris Paul is the one who at this point has to figure out, how do I get going in spite of the fact that Jrue Holiday has me averaging 5 turnovers every game since he's taken me as his assignment? How do I start to get DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, who had 27 points at one point and was not a factor last night? How do I get them going? The Phoenix Suns offense bench was actually better offensively than the Bucks bench in Game 4. And yet, they weren't able to win because Chris Paul can't get things going for the guys that he's starting with.
Here's
and to
why.
me, that's why this is the distinction. I can find a way to, if Khris Middleton, look, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
If Mikal Bridges is guarding Jrue Holiday, then that's the matchup that I'm going to. It's not an automatic that I'm going to Khris Middleton. I'm going to Khris Middleton when he has the matchup.
But here's why I can't concede that it is Chris Paul. For starters, we have seen the Suns win games without Chris Paul just a series ago against a team that is likely just as good as the Bucks team, which was the LA Clippers. Saw the Suns win 2 games without Chris Paul. Chris Paul shows up, we see them lose a game, obviously. Chris Paul helps close out that series, dropping 41 points. We've also seen the Suns win games when Chris Paul is maligned against the Lakers, not fully healthy. So we know that Chris Paul is of the utmost value, but he's not necessarily the most valuable considering both teams. Middleton, we ain't really seen the Bucks go out there and win without Middleton playing well. We've seen them go out there and compete. Game 2 against the Suns, they competed. Giannis gave you a 40-piece. They competed, still caught an L. Against the Nets, Giannis still gave you 30 points. Middleton only gave you 13. They competed, still caught an L, whereas we've actually seen the Suns win games. Let's not act like the Suns didn't have a chance to win that game. If Giannis doesn't make that freakazoid block, it's tied up 101 with roughly 50 or so minute and 20 seconds left. So Chris Paul is of the utmost importance, yes, but we've seen the Suns win without Chris Paul. I'm not sure that the Bucks could win with a down Middleton.
Well, the only issue I have with what you just brought up about Chris Paul is using other series as your evidence. But
Fair.
styles make fights. So where's campaign in other series? He's tremendous. In this series, we don't need it because it's the matchups. So it's not so much Chris Paul up and down. It's just the matchups are different. And Khris Middleton as well, to your example. But I like going into the weeds where Slick Rick went and talking about matchups. Hey, let's not call out Monty Williams right now, but let's talk to Monty Williams about putting DeAndre Ayton exclusively on Giannis. I mean, minute to minute, when Giannis checks in, you there. When he checks out, you go. Exactly. Mirror each other, because if you look at the numbers, Giannis by defender in this finals, he had 75 points against everyone else, but only 28 against DeAndre Ayton. He's shooting 77% against everybody else, but only 44% against Ayton. His free throw attempts, 37 against everyone else because they can't keep up with him. Just foul him. Only 10 on Ayton. So if you want to make this an easier road ahead to that championship, Phoenix Suns, Monty Williams, you got to mirror DeAndre Ayton on Giannis.